Coming up today on Issues in Education, the number of veterans heading to college is rising. We'll look at how FSU is working to make the campus friendlier for military men and women. Welcome to Issues in Education. I'm Suzanne Smith, alongside my co-host, the Florida State University President, Dr. Eric Barron. FSU has a long tradition of opening its doors to America's veterans. After all, in 1947, the Florida State College for Women changed its name and became coeducational in order to make room for more returning soldiers to become students. Now, 64 years later, there's a renewed push to make the Florida State University a more veteran-friendly campus. Check out this halftime program at the 2011 Garnet Gold Game.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the goalposts in the north end zone as we recognize a special group of students here at Florida State. Not long ago, these students were in foreign lands defending our country as part of the United States military, many of which in Iraq and Afghanistan. In the spirit of the unconquered Seminoles, we are proud of our students who have so bravely served our country in our nation's military.
It's a great initiative by President Eric Barron. He's done that. He wants to make this the most veteran-friendly university in the nation, and we're really working on that. Randy Blass out of the College of Business has had his entrepreneurial program to get veterans started in business, and this is another way to expand on that. And I think what you will see in the years to come, we're going to encourage veterans to come to Florida State because we care.
It feels incredible to know that our fellow students are this supportive. I mean, a standing ovation was something we didn't expect at all, and being down on the field is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for all of us. It was an excellent day and a really good show of support for the student body here at Florida State.
I tell them, go Noles, baby. You know, that's what I tell them. They need to get here because there's nowhere better than this school right now. You know, we're in the best part of the country with the greatest people around, and obviously one of the best football teams coming in here. So we're having a good time.
Please join Florida State University President Dr. Eric Barron and his wife, and Director of Athletics and Air Force Colonel retired Randy Spedman, as we pay tribute to FSU student veterans.
The push to become veteran-friendly isn't just in recognition, it's also in the ideas. Joining us today to talk more about the new ideas and the need for them is Randy Blass and Raul Perez. Randy is Director of the Center for Veterans Outreach at FSU College of Business. Raul served in the U.S. Marines from 2000 to 2004. And he's currently working on his master's degree in public administration at FSU. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Suzanne.
So you both served in the military. What is it like? What are the challenges to go from the military into the classroom?
I actually first enlisted in '79 with the goal of getting a higher education. It was taking a long time while active duty, so I separated from the military and went to a full-time college. At University of South Florida. The challenge was I was older, I was used to a lot of structure, and while campuses are somewhat structured, not very much so compared to the military, and so it felt funny. I felt different. I felt like I stood out just a little bit.
Raul, what about you?
Well, I would have to say I agree completely with what Randy said. I joined right out of high school. 5 days after I graduated from high school, I shipped out. I spent 4 years, and my first reason to join was to actually go and get my education because of the benefits military members enjoy while serving the country is that they get free tuition. However, a year after I joined in, 9/11 happened, and from that on, it was just war after war. So after my 4 years of commitment, I decided to get out. I didn't have the GPA to go into any state college or university because I did not so good in high school. So I went to a community college where I excel, and it was then that I came here. But going back to what Randy said, I would have to agree completely. The structure. The military is very structured, very disciplined. College is very liberal. We emphasize the freedom of people expressing their feelings, their ideas, something that we don't do in the military.
And Randy, you went on to get a PhD. At FSU? At FSU. And then came back. So what brought you back to FSU?
I made a tactical error in terms of academics. I came here because I was attracted by the program of study. in the management department, the College of Business, and the faculty that were there. Once here, I'm from Florida, I'm from Clearwater area, but once here, I just fell in love with Tallahassee. And so as I went back to serve in the Air Force after the academic assignment, I kind of longed to return, and it just so happened at the time I was looking to retire, 2006, there was a position that opened up in the College of Business that I was able to take advantage of, and we're glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about what you do for the Center for Veterans Outreach. What is that?
Center for Veterans Outreach is born out of a recognition that education, much as Raul and I have talked about, education serves to help veterans transition. They have wonderful experiences while in the military, but those experiences can be kind of narrow, and they don't always see the practical side, the business side of what they've learned and their experiences. And so the idea behind it was recognizing that veteran alum tend to be very successful, and they take their business experience and their education and combine the two, and they make for quite a capable person to the business community. And so recognizing that, we decided we would make an effort at recruiting, and then once recruited, help them, support them while they're here, support them with their transition, and then advocacy to be a voice for them and remove obstacles, and even help them transition from college into professional life.
Raul, a few months ago, you and Jared Lyons came by my office, and you basically said what you've just said in terms of the importance of becoming a more veteran-friendly university. And out of that came this idea of a FSU Veterans Initiative. So that started in February. What has the committee been working on?
Well, first, yourself put together a committee of persons within different strategic places from the university, register, admissions, veterans itself that have served, that have made a successful transition to university. And what this committee was all about was getting together and putting in paper some of the ideas that the university needed to follow, kind of like a plan of like how do we need to do, what do we need to do to make this a more friendly campus. In some of the proposal that we discussed early in February was like what was other universities were doing and how successful they were doing in recruiting veterans, and that's something that FSU lacked, and it's something that as being a student of Florida State University, getting my bachelor's and my master's here, I must say that I was not content with the situation. I felt like FSU was a great place for veterans to transition to. I had great capabilities to push them to become greater. So my whole initiative and everything that I push for is like, how do we get them? What do we do for them? And how would we push them out to civilian life, fully grown men with degrees, and how do they serve society?
Now, what came out of this Veterans Initiative? You had several meetings, and you recently in May presented, I think, some of your results. What did you guys decide or find out?
Raul's correct. We started with benchmarking off what other good schools were doing around the country to kind of start our idea generation process. And we were well down that path when we kind of stopped, took a pause, and said, okay, this is all great, and we can follow a pattern here and dial it up and have a great program at Florida State. But then we stopped and said, what is unique about Florida State? What makes us different, perhaps, than even the other schools we're looking at? And we started to see some things. And we had in our conversation, we had probably 3 words that kept coming back: community, heritage, and transition. Just kept coming back to us. And so we decided to stop, look at what was unique about Florida State, and focus on those 3 words and see what would come out of it just through our own idea generation process. And we started to get excited at that point. We started to recognize that maybe we were on to something very interesting. And when we opened up the possibilities and took liberty with the charge from President Barron to just go where this would take us, we started getting more and more excited, and we actually came up with a vision that embraced those 3 words and also put a marker out there for us to go and be a leader in this initiative across the country.
You know, one of the things that you said is, to me, first of all, you said, get started. We're going to give you a big idea, but don't let the big idea get in the way of getting started. So perhaps you could tell us what is the piece that's getting started, and then describe the vision of what you imagine this campus would be like if we really fulfilled that big idea that the committee came up with.
You want to? Okay. The big idea is basically getting the vet center, which is veterans issue related, veterans coming to First University, a space for them to create camaraderie, which is one of the things that we miss the most. When you join the military, you join as one person, but you live as brothers. You embrace that section or unit that you're with, and you sleep together, you eat together, you tell stories together. Everybody knows who your family is and you know their family as well. So you miss that camaraderie. So we try to create that in the vet center.
So you want one specific location where
one
things are located?
specific location. I kind of, in the initiative, I always call it the command post. We always want to go, military understand that there's one place within one situation where you could go to that place and get all your issues resolved. And that's what that was missing, is the university, FSU, have too many places to take care of different issues. Veterans need that one place where they can get directions. We know how to follow directions, but we didn't know where to get the directions. Along with that, we wanted to incorporate ROTC because we veterans understand like the need for true leadership within the service. So everybody has different experience within the service, but the leadership that we can provide the upcoming officers of like what was a good experience or what was a bad experience might tell them how to better lead their men in the future. And the last piece of it is the World War II museum, which is pieces that we have within FSU that was donated throughout the United States about World War II. It's something that we want to incorporate where people could come and do studies about World War II and veterans. Basically, I want this to be the spear of what veterans issue is, especially since the spearhead within the military is always thought of as the special forces. I want FSU to become the special forces of veterans.
So here it is, the history and alumni piece, the veterans who are now students, and the future veterans all together.
In one place.
Community.
So what is the let's get started now piece? Don't just wait until you have the whole vision together.
Yeah, and that's probably the most difficult part. We have a general direction, but there are a lot of things we don't know what we don't know yet about the issues facing us. But we do know that if we delay, that we will just push the problem off. And so what we think is most important is start with some staffing, get some people doing the work. We have several groups on campus. We have the advisory committee that you put together for this effort, very interested, energized group. There are also other groups. There's a veterans advocacy group that's been meeting informally for a couple of years now that are passionate about these issues. So we have a lot of things that have been going on at FSU, but they have not been directed. They've been just kind of working independent of one another. So this effort will bring all of those forces together under the leadership of a director of this facility. We do need to create a physical space, a place for that can be identified as the place to go to host maybe receptions and do the kinds of things we want to get started. And then future, 3-4 years down the road, we would expect this to really get legs and grow based on demonstrated performance.
How many veterans would it serve at FSU, or how many veterans are at FSU right now?
This is it's a tough question because the statistic that we track is those that utilize GI Bill benefits, and not all veterans do. But we can see something above 300 across the campus is kind of the number that surfaces. So that's one of the first things that we would do out of this center is better track that, and better track that community and let them know that we're there ready to support them. But we expect those numbers to climb, as all forecasts are that this number is climbing dramatically across the country. as more veterans utilize the GI Bill benefits, and under this new GI Bill, their family members can utilize their benefit. And so we're seeing this rise, this surge in GI Bill and veterans on campuses. This is in part a way to anticipate that increased demand and to embrace it as it comes. So we expect that number to rise.
And in fact, we are going to take this first step. We've just had approved a position for the director of our veterans activities, and that will be posted shortly. And we now have 2 offices in Pearl Tyner House, the old president's house. Good parking that will house a director and will house the first advisor. And so this is a commitment to begin this process and exactly take the advice of the committee, which is don't wait to do the whole thing. Let's get started now.
Okay, well, here's a question that everybody's asking with everything these days. How do you pay for it?
Well, right now, the position of director is going to be just paid for out of my personal budget, because I really do believe that we have to get started. And the advisor will come out of the Dean of Undergraduate Studies, and at first will be assigned a segment of time to be at Pearl Tyner House so that there's a group of hours. But then the next step in this process is to put together a fundraising committee. And we've already got a chair, and our thought is to have the highest ranking veteran in all branches of service as a core of a fundraising committee, and to go to the thousands of FSU alumni that are veterans and see if they will support this effort so that we can endow it, and it'll be a part of FSU.
Well, until this all, it sounds like we've got a good start on that. Until that gets going, there's still other programs like what you've been doing for the Center for Veterans Outreach. Tell us, you just finished up another entrepreneurship boot camp for veterans. Explain what that is.
This is a program that addresses the understanding that veterans are entrepreneurial when they're on active duty. When they're given a mission, they often are given some task and some mission, often without the resources to adequately accomplish it. So they have to innovate, and we recognize that there's something about military experience that serves to make successful entrepreneurs, and that statistic bears out across the country. What we do in that program is we recognize that veterans with disabilities are particularly challenged with transition. So when we talk about the challenge that Raul had or that I had in transitioning to academic environment, if you have a disability, that problem is compounded. And so we hope through this entrepreneurship program, or we know through this entrepreneurship program, that we create more opportunities in the lives of these disabled veterans as they go to transition out of uniform. They have issues of identity that they're struggling with. Oftentimes the separation from the military was not by their choice. It was a forced decision. So they're struggling with a lot of issues about what to do next. And we think that for some of that population, entrepreneurship is an exciting challenge that they can embrace as they transition forward. And we just finished our 4th program hosted here at Florida State University. It's an annual program that seats about 25 veterans each year.
And Raul, you're an officer in the FSU chapter of Collegiate Veterans Association. What does that group do?
It's a student organization for students and run by students. Basically, what we do is we kind of create that little camaraderie. We want to listen to what the current issues they're facing within the administration, within the school, how the transition is doing, and we use some of the senior veterans that have been in the university for so long to try to assist them as much as possible in that transition, especially because they were there before and they might be there by themselves. Now they have something to pass along. So we try to hear their problems and listen to it and try to assist them in how to better solve it.
Thank you both for joining us. We've been talking with Randy Blass and Raul Perez about the Florida State University's Veterans Initiative. For more information on the Center for Veterans Outreach, go to cob.fsu.edu/CVO. From there, you can also link to the website for FSU's Collegiate Veterans Association. When we come back, Dr. Barron and I will talk one-on-one about more issues in education. Welcome back to Issues in Education. I'm Suzanne Smith, talking with Dr. Eric Barron, the president of the Florida State University. Dr. Barron, we've been talking about the Veterans Initiative, and Raul mentioned that it started with a meeting with you. What was it in that meeting that you said, hey, this is something we need to take care of?
Well, first of all, here are these two students, Raul Perez and Jared Lyons, and they're both very articulate, and they're describing specific needs of veterans and what that transition is like. And you know, Florida State prides itself on being a family and a welcoming community and a place where you can excel. And I was just struck that here was this community that we weren't doing the job that we're so proud of doing. And what they were asking for was really very deliberate to serve specific needs that we ought to be able to address. And so that launched the committee, and the committee felt, and which is just wonderful, they felt that they could reach, they could come up with the big ideas that would really have impact, not just let's get a director and some student advisors, but a vision that's there. So I think we can do it.
Recently, Governor Rick Scott vetoed some of the money planned for FSU and other universities in this year's legislative budget. How is that impacting the university? Well,
since 2007, we have now lost $104 million of our general appropriation. That's a big number. Even after the tuition increase that the Board of Governors has now approved, we have to find $19 million. It is never fun to find that much money when you have year after year looked for money and lost people and watched the number of assistant professors drop and watched class sizes go up, and it's harder to get some classes. This is not something we can continue to do. So finding $19 million after all of that is not an easy job.
Is that basically been, I mean, what are some of the hardest decisions you've had to make? Because without that money, you're going to have to make cuts.
Okay, well, so we've looked at this very systematically with the notion that if you increase the tuition, you better not do less for your students. You really ought to be doing more for your students. And in our case, we're trying to hold the line. So we have systematically gone through looking in each and every corner where we can save money, and there is no place within the administration that isn't going to be tapped for some amount. And we're even going so far as to have athletics contribute money to our academic programs. Athletics is growing. It's one of the few areas that's growing. And we have to have a great university that goes along with great athletics. So it has been a task of nibbling away at each million in order to come up with the total. But we are not going to do layoffs of faculty and staff if we can help it at all. And I think we'll manage it. It will make us vulnerable next year because we're going to basically use up all the remaining flexibility we have in order to balance the budget.
One of the things that was also cut was the money for the Applied Sciences building. Where does that stand?
Well, it's always tough when the building is half done and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under it. And I don't think this has ever happened before. And, you know, perhaps in our case, we have not communicated how important that building is for jobs and creating individuals that go out into the marketplace.
Well, then explain what is the Applied Sciences building for?
Well, there's a whole set of power, engineering, wind tunnel that will energize research that we have that is much more applied and addresses specific societal needs. And so it's unfortunate that all of a sudden, which is a job generator, loses ground. So we have to find the money somewhere else.
You mentioned the increase of tuition at the most recent Board of Governors meeting. Will that help make up some of the money that you've lost?
It does. The $19 million that we have to find is after also taking into account the tuition increase.
Well, how will this still keep us ranked? Right now, Florida is 48th in price.
And we'll still, as a state, be 48th. The interesting thing about it is that we're far below the average in tuition, and tuition and fees. And so if we increase tuition 15%, that's 15% on about $3,000. The other schools out there are increasing their tuition, but and it doesn't sound like as big a number, but it's on a tuition base that's much larger. So the average tuition in the country went up 7 or 8%, but on a number that's a couple of $1,000s higher than what we charge. So and they've been doing that for 4 or 5 years. So basically we're not catching them. We're not catching the average. So we're still down there at 48th.
And it'll take a while to...
As people say, thank goodness for Louisiana or Wyoming, or we'd be at the bottom.
You also, the decision to have a new provost was recently made. So Garnet Stokes is going to be starting soon. Other than the name, Garnet, why was she a good choice for the university?
Well, she is Dean of Arts and Sciences at the University of Georgia, at least for a couple more weeks. And that's a very large program. It has a breadth of disciplines, so this gives you the type of experience that makes a good transition to provost.
Thank you very much, President Barron. That's our time for now. Please join us again next month for more Issues in Education. You can watch the premiere episode of Issues in Education the first Wednesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. That means you can see the next new episode on Wednesday, August 3rd on WFSU-TV. Join us as we discuss the latest developments in higher education happening around the state and across the country. If you have questions that you would like us to address on this program, you can email us at issues@wfsu.org. Again, that's issues@wfsu.org. If you would like to see past episodes of Issues in Education, head to the President's website at president.fsu.edu. I'm Suzanne Smith with the Florida State President, Dr. Eric Barron, for Issues in Education. We'll see you next time.